Welcome back. Today we watch an abandoned stone ruin dismantled and reborn as a structural fortress, blending modern engineering with traditional Italian masonry. Clearing the old walls exposes the earth, requiring deep foundation trenches to anchor the new footprint into the hillside. The drilling phase fractures bedrock to create a stable, level base. Once excavated, workers lower intricate steel rebar cages inside wooden formwork. These metal skeletons provide essential tensile strength, preventing the future concrete from cracking under the immense shifting weight of the sloping terrain above it. Pouring a foundation of this scale demands a continuous, high-volume flow. A mechanized pump truck extends over the site, delivering wet concrete directly into the dense steel grid. By filling the gaps rapidly, the mixture cures as a single monolithic slab rather than separate, weaker layers. Workers manually guide the heavy hose, vibrating and smoothing the concrete to eliminate hidden air pockets. These invisible voids, if left unchecked, can compromise the entire load-bearing capacity of the floor. The wet pour must be leveled before the chemical curing process locks the stone into its final, rigid state. With the floor cured, the focus shifts to holding back the mountain. Tall retaining walls rise against the rocky earth, heavily reinforced with vertical rebar. To shape these massive barriers, workers secure rigid formwork panels along the steel grid. These temporary yellow molds must withstand extreme hydrostatic pressure when the wet concrete is poured. A single weak connection could cause a blowout, ruining the pour. Precision is mandatory. The upper framing relies on a hybrid system of red, hollow clay blocks and steel reinforcement. This traditional method significantly reduces the overall dead weight of the floor compared to a solid concrete slab. The hollow cores also introduce an inherent thermal break, slowing temperature transfer between stories. Once the grid is fully laid, it acts as a permanent formwork for the next structural pour. Beyond the main structure, the surrounding landscape requires immediate stabilization. A low dry stone wall borders the new driveway, built carefully with mortar to prevent soil erosion from heavy rain runoff. Simultaneously, the hillside is anchored using thick landscape fabric and deep-rooting cypress trees. The vegetation functions as a living retaining system. Moving to the roof, a thick concrete layer is pumped across the upper block and rebar mesh. Pumping the material in a single continuous session ensures structural continuity across the entire span. This heavy cap ties the exterior walls together. It acts as a rigid diaphragm that distributes wind and seismic loads evenly down to the deep foundation. Over the insulation, thick, waterproof membrane panels are rolled out and overlapped. This dark shield guarantees a completely impermeable thermal envelope. Authentic restoration requires saving the original materials. Decades of moss and biological growth must be aggressively scrubbed from the salvaged clay tiles with wire brushes. Organic debris prevents proper bonding and traps moisture, which can shatter the fired clay during freezing winter nights. The cleaned antique tiles are then overlapped alongside new pieces, blending modern weatherproofing with a centuries-old aesthetic. The exterior stone facade begins with the most critical load-bearing elements. Workers carefully align a massive custom-cut stone block to form the windowsill. This heavy threshold must sit perfectly level to shed water outward. Every detail of the traditional facade is custom-fitted by a master stonemason. Using simple hand tools, he measures and scores the dense material, identifying the natural grain to guide his strikes. A pointed metal chisel is driven repeatedly into the face to carve a deep, recessed groove. This channel creates a mechanical key for the window frame to lock into, blocking wind and driving rain. The slow process requires extreme patience and a deep understanding of geological flaws. One heavy, misplaced strike could fracture the entire block, forcing him to start over from raw stone. To finish the heavy facade, specialized mortar is mixed to a smooth, workable consistency. Using a piping bag allows the builder to inject the light sandy grout deep into the irregular joints. This technique prevents staining on the face of the rough stones. The deep seal locks the entire structural wall together. At the peak of the gable, the final mortar touches are applied against the structural roofline. Closing these highest gaps prevents birds and driving weather from infiltrating the exposed eaves. The exterior shell is complete. Inside, the interior space is divided using lightweight clay blocks. Reaching the heavy wooden ceiling beams requires careful fitting, wedging the final courses tight against the timber. A snug fit at the top of the partition prevents future settling. It also limits sound transmission between the newly defined living spaces. The interior envelope is then sealed inside massive sheets of highly reflective foil. This specialized barrier stops radiant heat loss and acts as a strict vapor block for the masonry. Working up the scaffold, the foil is stretched tightly over the highest peaks. Any tear or unsealed overlap creates a compromised thermal bridge. Enclosing the entire upper floor in this silver skin prepares the volume for advanced climate control. The raw stone and brick are now completely isolated from the conditioned interior air. At the primary entrance, a solid stone threshold is mortared directly into the floor. Dust and debris are thoroughly vacuumed out first. Mortar cannot bond properly to a layer of loose dirt. A weak joint here would eventually crack under the constant vibration of heavy foot traffic and massive glass doors. Outside, the essential utility infrastructure is buried. Thick PVC lines are graded and sealed into a massive concrete septic system. This network manages wastewater safely away from the surrounding groundwater. The steep hillside behind the home requires serious reinforcement to prevent severe slope failure. A deep, curved foundation trench is filled with heavy concrete and vertical rebar spikes. This hidden footing provides the subterranean strength necessary to support the immense weight of the Fieldstone wall above. Building a dry stone wall at this scale requires heavy mechanical lifting. An excavator slowly lowers massive fieldstones while workers guide them into their final resting place with straps. Gravity and friction, not mortar, hold this ancient structural puzzle together. A functional estate must produce as well as protect. Across the terraced valley, an extensive agricultural revival takes shape. Workers hand-shovel nutrient-rich fertilizer pellets around the base of hundreds of young olive saplings. This boost encourages deep root growth before the dry summer heat arrives. Meanwhile, the heavy excavator continues to grade the surrounding slopes. Establishing a permanent drainage pattern will sustain the orchard for generations. The land is being programmed to yield. The journey from an isolated ruin to a restored estate begins at the property line. The original approach was nothing more than a muddy, overgrown track cutting through dense timber. Now, a sweeping aerial perspective reveals a wide, perfectly graded gravel road winding gracefully through the forest. Deep drainage culverts line the edges, directing seasonal floodwaters away from the roadbed to prevent devastating washouts. The newly constructed stone retaining walls do more than hold back the earth. They define the approach, creating a clean transition between the wild Italian landscape and the private ground. It is a calculated transformation of the terrain. The true scale of the restoration becomes fully apparent against the original footage. The dilapidated stone structure, once crumbling under a makeshift tarp roof, has been meticulously revived. Raw, unrendered walls have been transformed into a pristine, traditional facade, utilizing modern waterproofing techniques. The heavy terracotta roof lines are pitched to shed rain into new copper gutters. Every massive stone sill, carefully chiseled and leveled, sits properly plumb against the oversized glass windows. It is not a factory-perfect modern box, but an honest resurrection of old-world craftsmanship, fortified by contemporary engineering. Where wild, impassable brush once choked the valley, a sprawling geometric orchard now climbs the slope. The young olive trees stand in measured rows, anchored against the soil, while snow-capped mountains loom overhead. In the end, structure, landscape, and daily routine operate as one system. It is a place that produces, protects, and sustains itself.